Chapter 28. Other Ecstatic Symptoms. Part 1. Existential, Ecstatic Love for Kṛṣṇa. When a devotee is always intensely affected by love for Kṛṣṇa in a direct relationship with him, or even a little apart from him, his status is called existential ecstatic love. The symptoms originating from such existential ecstatic love are divided into 3 headings, namely, moist, burnt, and dried up. Moist existential ecstatic love, aroused in connection with Kṛṣṇa, is divided into 2, direct and indirect. Radharani was weaving a garland of kunda flowers, and upon hearing the vibration of Kṛṣṇa's flute, she immediately stopped her work. This is an example of direct, moistened, existential, ecstatic love. Indirect, moistened, existential, ecstatic love is described in the following statement. Kṛṣṇa, who is also called Purushottama, is to the eyes of Mother Yasoda just like the cloud is to the eyes of the Cetaki bird. When Kṛṣṇa had been brought to Mathura, Mother Yasoda, being very anxious and angry, began to rebuke the king of Mathura. Burnt, existential, ecstatic love is divided into 3, and one example is as follows. One day, Mother Yasoda was dreaming that the gigantic demon Putana was lying on the courtyard of her house, and she immediately became anxious to seek out Kṛṣṇa. When there are manifestations of ecstatic symptoms in the body of a non-devotee, these are called dried-up symptoms of ecstatic love. The non-devotees are actually materialistic, but in contact with some pure devotee, they sometimes may manifest some symptoms of ecstasy. Devotional scholars call these dried-up symptoms. There are 8 symptoms of existential ecstatic love. Becoming stunned, perspiring, standing of the hairs on the body, faltering of the voice, trembling of the body, changing bodily colors, shedding tears, and devastation. The scientific explanation of these 8 symptoms is given by Rupa Goswami as follows. When the vital force of life is in contact with the earth, it is called stunning. When the same force comes into contact with water, there's the shedding of tears. When the same force comes into contact with fire, there is perspiration. When the same force comes into contact with the sky, there is complete devastation. And when that force comes into contact with the air, there is trembling, failing of the voice, and standing of the hairs on the body. These symptoms are sometimes manifested internally and sometimes externally. The pure devotee always feels such symptomatic expressions within himself, but being afraid of outsiders, he does not generally manifest them externally. Becoming stunned. The symptom of becoming stunned is caused by ecstatic tribulation, fearfulness, astonishment, lamentation, and anger. This symptom is exhibited by a stoppage of talking, a stoppage of movement, a feeling of voidness, and an extreme feeling of separation. When Uddhava was describing Krishna's pastimes to Vidura, he said, quote, "One day the gopis became stunned when Kṛṣṇa, in the dress of a gardening maid, entered the greenhouse and enlivened them with joking and laughter. Then, when Kṛṣṇa left the greenhouse, the gopis were seeing Kṛṣṇa so ecstatically that it was as though both their minds and eyes were following him." End quote. These symptoms signify that although the gopis' business was not finished, they had become stunned with ecstatic love. Another example of being stunned took place when Kṛṣṇa was surrounded by various wrestlers in the sacrificial arena of Kṛṣṇa. His mother Devotee, there's a footnote here, which reads, Devotee was the natural mother of Kṛṣṇa, his father being Vasudeva. In order to protect the divine baby from Devaki's brother Kṛṣṇa, Vasudeva delivered Kṛṣṇa to Nanda and Mother Yasoda in Vrindavan, and it was there that he exhibited his childhood pastimes. At 16 years of age, he returned to Mathura, where Devaki had given birth to him, and vanquished Kṛṣṇa in the arena mentioned here. See the author's Kṛṣṇa, as well as his Srimad Bhagavatam, for fuller details of these events. End footnote. Devaki then became stunned, and her eyes dried up when she saw Kṛṣṇa among the wrestlers. There is also an example of the astonishment of Lord Brahma. It is explained in the 10th canto, 13th chapter, 51st verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, that when Brahma understood that this cowherd boy was the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, he became stunned. All of his sensual activities became stopped upon seeing all the cowherd boys again, along with Kṛṣṇa. Lord Brahma was so stunned that he appeared to be a golden statue with 4 heads. Also, when the residents of Braj found that Kṛṣṇa had lifted Govardhan Hill with his left hand, they became stunned. Astonishment caused by lamentation is exemplified when Kṛṣṇa was entering into the belly of the Bakasura demon, and all the demigods from higher planets became stunned with lamentation. A similar example of becoming stunned was visible in Arjuna when he saw that Asvatthama was attempting to release his Brahmastra at Kṛṣṇa. Perspiration. An example of perspiring because of jubilation is described in Srimad Bhagavatam. One gopi addressed Radharani thusly, quote, "My dear Radharani, you are rebuking the sunshine unnecessarily, but I can understand that you are perspiring only because of your becoming too lusty at seeing Kṛṣṇa." End quote. Perspiration caused by fearfulness was exhibited by Raktak, one of the servants of Kṛṣṇa. One day, Kṛṣṇa dressed himself just like Abhimanyu, the husband of Radharani. Abhimanyu did not like Radharani's association with Kṛṣṇa, and therefore, when Raktak saw Kṛṣṇa in the dress of Abhimanyu, and thus mistook his identity, he began to strongly rebuke him. As soon as Raktak finally understood that it was Kṛṣṇa in the dress of Abhimanyu, he began perspiring. This perspiration was caused by fearfulness. Perspiration due to anger was exhibited by Garuda, the eagle who is the carrier of Vishnu. Once the heavenly king Indra was sending torrents of rain over Vrindavan. Garuda was observing the incident from above the clouds, and because of his anger, he began perspiring. Standing of hairs on the body. The standing up of hairs on the body was manifested when Mother Yasoda found within Krishna's mouth all of the universal planetary systems. She had asked Kṛṣṇa to open his mouth wide, just to see whether he had eaten dirt. But when Kṛṣṇa opened his mouth, she saw not only the entire earth, but also many other planets within his mouth. This caused a standing up of the hair on her body. The standing up of hair on the body resulting from jubilation is described in the 10th canto, 30th chapter, 9th verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, in connection with the gopis engaged in the rasa dance. During this rasa dance, Kṛṣṇa disappeared all of a sudden with Radharani, and the gopis began to search him out. At that time, they addressed the earth and began to say, quote, "My dear earthly planet, how many austerities and penances you must have undergone to have the lotus feet of Kṛṣṇa always touching your surface. I think that you must be very jubilant because the trees and plants, which are just like hairs on your body, are standing up so gloriously. May we ask, when did you first get these symptoms? Are you enjoying this jubilation since you were touched by the incarnation of Vamana, or since you were delivered by the incarnation of Raha?" End quote. Kṛṣṇa would sometimes perform mock fighting along with cowherd boys. When Kṛṣṇa blew his horn in this mock fighting, Sridham, who was on the opposing side, felt his bodily hairs stand up. Similarly, when Arjuna saw Kṛṣṇa in his gigantic universal form, there was a standing of the hairs on his body. Faltering of the voice. When Kṛṣṇa was going to Mathura on a chariot driven by a Krura, Yasoda and all the gopis came to try to forbid him to pass and block his way. At that time, Radharani was so perturbed that in a faltering voice she requested Mother Yasoda to please stop Akrura. Faltering of the voice resulting from wonder was exhibited by Brahma. It is said in Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 13th chapter, 59th verse, that after bowing down before Lord Kṛṣṇa, when Brahma began to rise, he prayed to the Lord in a faltering voice. In the 10th canto, 29th chapter, 27th verse, another example of faltering of the voice was exhibited by the gopis when they came to Kṛṣṇa, desiring to dance with him. Kṛṣṇa asked them to go back to their husbands and homes. The gopis apparently became very angry and began to talk to Kṛṣṇa with faltering voices. In the 10th canto, 39th chapter, 48th verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, a faltering voice due to jubilation was exhibited by Akrura when he was shown all of the Vaikuntha planets resting within the river Yamuna. When Akrura understood that Kṛṣṇa was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he bowed his head to Kṛṣṇa's lotus feet and with folded hands began to pray in a faltering voice. There are also examples of faltering of the voice caused by fearfulness. One of Kṛṣṇa's friends praised him thusly, quote, "My dear friend, your flute was given to your servant Patri, and when I asked him to return it, he began speaking in a faltering voice, and his complexion became yellow." End quote. Trembling. When Kṛṣṇa was trying to capture the demon Shankha, Radharani began trembling out of fearfulness. Similar trembling of the body was exhibited in Sahadev, the younger brother of Nakula. When Shishupal was vehemently blaspheming the Lord, Sahadev began to tremble out of anger. Trembling of the body was also exhibited by Radharani out of tribulation. Radharani trembled as she told one of the gopis, quote, Don't joke with this disappointing boy. Please ask him not to approach me, because he is always the cause of all grief for us." End quote.